everybody. It's great to have you here. This is Jamalyn.
This is Kim. It's good to be with you today.
And we are back on Zoom. We're not in the same room like we were last time. But I heard a rumor, Kim.
What is that?
Have you heard a rumor? I heard a rumor that we might be getting a studio. Maybe we could be in the same room, really talking things out. It's going to be exciting.
Right. Yeah. And we could even maybe invite some of our viewers to join us at some point if we had a studio.
Ooh, we could. A live audience.
Yes, exactly.
I love a good live audience. Well, everybody, this is One Thing More, and this is where we talk about reflections from the sermon we heard on Sunday, which was yesterday. And so yesterday was graduation Sunday, and we celebrated those who are graduating from high school and college. Do you remember your high school graduation?
Oh, absolutely. I remember what I wore and everything. Yep. Remember, I have a picture around here somewhere.
I do too. I wore a straight red dress because my high school colors were red, white, and black.
Oh, okay.
And I just want to say I looked amazing. I think I look like I'm a size 4. Like, I just want to tell that girl, you are so beautiful, and I'm so happy you don't have to have Spanx on right now.
Yeah. Yes, it wasn't even a thing then. So thank goodness we didn't need them. But no. My colors were green and white. And the girls were white and the boys were green. So we had to wear white dresses and had these really cute wedge sandals, peep toe wedges.
So, I bet those were great. Now, you know what I think is funny is if we asked any guy, what did you wear to your high school graduation? Oh, no cap and gown.
Right. Exactly.
Well, then I was thinking how crazy it was because I sat in church on graduation Sunday next to one of my oldest and best friends that I went to her house on graduation day morning. And I think we probably got ready together. My good friend Janine was here. And I thought, how fortunate am I that 2 years after I graduated from high school, I'm still really good friends with, this woman. It's only been 2 years.
I was going to say, you're working on a lifetime.
Yeah. So we talked about David and Goliath. Pretty good Bible story to tell the kids about.
It is a pretty good story. As I was listening to the sermon, though, I did have, some times where I was like, man, I'm listening to this differently than I did. First of all, I love that part of the illustration for the story was more like animated, third grade humor kind of pictures, because I think everybody can connect to that. But as I was listening, I thought, could a little boy really kill a lion and a bear? Yeah. So
a little boy who has God's heart can do whatever he wants to.
And it wasn't just him.
Let's be clear. It's the same guy. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it wasn't just him though, because he probably couldn't on its own.
That's a very good point. David gets a lot of credit for a lot of things that he did in community, but he's kind of the shining star. David's interesting. He killed a lion, he killed a bear, he killed... What?
I said David.
What I say?
In the Bible, you said David, but I call Pastor David sometimes. So I'm thinking like, does he? And I'm like, you mean the one in the story? Not.
Yes, the guy in the story, not my husband. My husband has not killed anyone, but the guy in the story has managed to take down a lot of people. I remember once I did a sermon on David getting caught by, the prophet Nathan going to David and basically telling him, you have messed up, you're in a lot of trouble. And I said that I thought the reason David sent the man off to war so he could marry his wife was because he was bored. That was the exegesis that I did, because he just like sent him off to war. So it's interesting to go all the way back to the beginning to talk about this part. So, okay, so Dave had a lot of really good metaphors in the sermon, I believed, to be, Pastor Dave did. One of the things that he talked about right at the very beginning, because they were talking about how David said, well, you know, people were like, well, he's just a boy. And Pastor Dave talked about, you know, you are just, a lot of times we tell ourselves this lie that we are just fill in the blank.
Yeah. And it's almost without a doubt something negative that we're just, right?
It always is. That's a great point.
Yeah. We don't say it about things that are good or that are triumphs. You know, it's always about our challenges and our deficits. When we say you're just not capable.
Yeah, we have a bad habit of discounting ourselves. And I think sometimes we do that to protect ourselves from the hard stuff. You know, like, I'm just one person, what can I do? When history has proved over and over again that individuals do amazing things if they really think they need to. Yeah, so I thought that was a really great message for graduates to hear, you know, because they might say, well, I'm just a freshman, you know, when you go off to college, or, you know, I'm just 18. Or,
no, I can remember being a freshman in high school being pretty easy, you know, and then freshman year of college, like, really wasn't. Like, I had to really apply myself. It's kind of like shock.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a rude awakening when I went to college as well, because it had been pretty easy in high school for me. And then to go to college, I realized, oh, can't I get a major in playing euchre? And you cannot.
So much. Aren't enough classes.
Not so much. Yeah, what do you do with folks as a therapist when they come in and sit down in front of you and say, I just can't do this anymore? I just, you know, and you can sense they're heading down. How do you help turn people around from a just mentality to a can mentality?
Yeah, I think just, first of all, listening to that, and then just asking some expanding sort of questions, like, a lot of times I ask people, what evidence do you have that you can't? Because typically we don't have much, you know. It's just like we feel defeated in the moment and we make up this lie, as Pastor Dave said, that we are just, you know, not capable. And when really it isn't true. Like, okay, tell me what evidence you have that this is gonna not work. Most of the time people don't have a lot.
What are the Goliaths?
I guess the conversation sort of opened up about what you can do.
Yeah. Pastor Dave talked about too, he said, in the battle, that's where we find out who we are. And
as usual,
I was just
listening. Right? Go ahead.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Like, if you stop it, I'm just this, then you may never know, like, how strong you are, that you are capable of figuring out a way to conquer this thing that's so much bigger than you. If you stop with, I'm just this, you know, one person, or I'm just whatever. But I wonder too, you know, when people come to you, or just anybody talking to a friend who clearly they're with someone who's struggling, you know, I'm just, you know, I'm just one person or whatever, you know, that can be a call to the person receiving that message to help put, you know, this effort or this source of confidence in them too, you know, like, you're not just that, you're so much more.
And I think in those moments, a lot of times a trusted conversation partner can see what you can't see yourself because you're so in it, you know, you're feeling so defeated, but someone who's outside of that can see things that you can't see, can remind you of your past successes, you know, what you've done in the past, what you're still capable of, what you can do going.
I think when you reach a point where you're saying, I'm just whatever, your head is already pretty much down. You know, like I like to use the Peloton app to walk outside, and constantly they're like, make sure you're looking up, make sure you're looking up, make sure you're looking up. And it is interesting because normally when you walk, it's just kind of natural to look down, but it is when you start to look up and look around, it does give you kind of a little more energy. I think a lot of times when we are ready to kind of feel defeated about whatever, we immediately look down and almost are ready to kind of like bury our head in the sand. And it is nice to have those people around us who will say, no, you're more than that. Look up, you can see what you've done already or whatever. So that's a really great point.
It is one part of the song I loved was that even if you don't succeed or it doesn't turn out exactly like you expected it to or wanted it to, okay, so you just do something, you change course, you know, you try again. There are still options. And that, you know, Pastor Dave said, it doesn't always turn out, you know, I use the term rainbows and unicorns. You know, everything doesn't always turn out exactly like we want it to, but that doesn't mean that we ourselves are inadequate or failures.
Yeah, the way we think how we're going to get to the result, who cares how you get there sometimes. It is true though, isn't it? Sometimes we get more caught up on the how instead of just getting to the final destination, which was kind of what was going on where they're like, here, take my armor. You know, they had in their way how they thought David should go about doing this. And then at the end of the day, he's like, I'm going to do it my way. So that kind of brings us to another question that Pastor Dave asked during the sermon. Is he asked, when do we set aside the armor? You know, when do you have to decide, okay, the way I planned it is not going to be the way or the way it was planned for me even is not how I'm going to go about doing this thing.
Yeah. When do you think we set it aside?
Well, for me, you know, I always think about for my own experience, out of my own experiences. I think a lot of times exhaustion will force us to put our armor aside, you know, and when I say exhaustion, I mean like we have been trying so hard to do something the way we think we should do it, and it doesn't work and it doesn't work, and you still keep trying and keep trying. It's like stubbornness, and by the time you realize I'm just failing one time over another, exhaustion kind of helps you realize I got to try this a different way.
Yeah.
You know, and I think they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again without different results or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes if you're stubborn, like I have been told I am, exhaustion will finally be the thing that makes you realize, okay, I'm just going to have to put this armor down.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. I think that when you have to collaborate with someone else to get to where it is you're trying to go, that you have to take off some of your armor. You have to let your guard down, be vulnerable. In order to be in collaboration.
You were going to say be vulnerable. I could feel it coming.
Yeah. I mean,
but it is true. That is an interesting metaphor too. Mm-hmm. You take your armor off and you're very vulnerable, right? You have nothing protecting you.
Nothing at all. Just, you know, your sling.
You got your slingshot. Or, you know, your small pistol, as it turned out to be.
Yeah, right.
Um,
Or the Holy Spirit, right? It could be both and.
well, that's fascinating because for me, when Pastor Dave was talking about that, the thing I thought about putting your armor down was when he and I moved to Haiti and lived there.
Yeah.
And I spent my first 6 months crying almost every day on what I called my wailing bench. It was a concrete bench outside this gazebo. And would you believe that when the earthquake hit, that stinking bench survived the rubble? All the other benches collapsed except my stupid wailing bench. And so for me, every time I go back, because it was on that bench that I finally just said out loud, fine, God, I clearly don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to have to just follow and do what you want me to, I guess. So there, are you happy now? You know, and I'm crying. And that was the last time I sat on that bench. And now when I go back to fondue, I still see that stupid bench. All the other ones are gone. And I literally was like, really? Come on. You know,
which is
that's
pretty
my
amazing.
marker.
I mean, it was your idea to go, but was it? You know what I mean? Like it was your idea to go.
Well,
but it was sort of in you, right?
Yeah, you clearly were on that bench with me and I didn't even know you yet, because that was a lot of the conversations I'd have. I'd be like, I was the one who talked Dave into coming here and he's the one having a good old time. And I'm the one that keeps figuring out how I can sneak out in the middle of the night and go back home. So yeah, it was quite a conversation. I tell people I was so type A when we moved there that God just picked me up and broke me over God's knee and was like, okay, good, I'm done here. You know, but all that armor that I kept on me.
Yeah, you're still pretty type A, which is not a negative. So, man, you were like, what is that?
You have no idea.
I can only imagine. What is that stuff like they put on race cars to make them Nas or something like that? Is that what it's called? I don't know. I'm dating myself. Never mind.
I don't know.
Turbocharged.
I was a little bit keyed up, one might say. Mm-hmm. But I did teach me to put my armor down, and I had to just sort of accept help. And I had to accept that I didn't know everything. And that, you know, we got interviewed for the Carmel Current. Dave and I did. They did a little article on Zami Fondua. And at the very end of it, the guy asked me just how it changed our faith. And I said, you know, we came back from those 2 years and we were speaking to a Sunday school class. And then, you know, one of our senior members of the church asked me, were you able to save anybody while you were down there? Like, you know, thinking we were even, you know, evangelizing and that kind of thing. And I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say. And I looked at Dave and he said, well, sir, I'd like to think that people saw Jesus through our actions and the way we cared and loved one another. But I guess I could say that 2 people were saved while we were down there. And that would be Jamalyn and me. And the guy said, I like that. That's good.
It's a good answer. It's the right answer. That's the one I was looking for. Mm-hmm. That's one of those like stump the preacher questions, you know?
Yeah. But, you know, thinking about it, that was a lot of armor we had to put down in order to be changed.
Oh, yeah. So. To move to a new place where you didn't speak the language when you went there, right?
Kim, you're clever. Let me tell you, you're clever. You somehow made this a little therapy session with Jamalyn. I tell you, I was not prepared for that, audience.
It just happens.
The audience is like, we knew what Kim was doing. She walked you right in there, Jamalyn. Well, Kim is a licensed therapist. Those out there, if you would like to make an appointment with her, call the church office. They'll help you get in touch with her. My session was free. She will charge you, though.
This turns into that.
It's funny.
I mean, that was a time where I think that would have been God's rescue, right? Like you thought you were lost.
Well, yeah, I mean, and then Dave asked the question, when you look at your past, when has God rescued you? And, I would say that in a lot of ways, it was sitting on that bench for me. It wasn't, I think sitting on that bench every day for 6 months prepared me for 7 years later being there when an earthquake happened or whatever, because I learned when we lived there to depend on the people around me to help me, that just because I was an American didn't do me any good down there. And then,
Right.
when the earthquake hit, I had to depend on those same people again to help us figure out how to get out. And, it's, wow, this is very freeing, everybody.
You were responsible for a bunch of people too. So they had to look to you for help.
Well, yeah, that time was too. So yeah. That armor, got to put it down, baby. You're going to miss out on stuff in life, you guys, if you keep that armor. And plus the armor is heavy. Heavy.
Exhausting. It's exhausting. When you can just put it down.
It's heavy.
Quitting my corporate job was a rescue of sorts. I don't know that I particularly looked at it like that then, but it was definitely rescue because I knew I needed to do something with more intrinsic value, which too. I really went to seminary so that I could talk to preacher types about mental health and have the same, credential as them. So I'd have the same authority as them, or at least they listen to me, not just as a, mental health person, but my company, I'm pretty sure this is my right memory. A week after I graduated from seminary, my division shut. So, God was just already preparing me for the next thing during that end of that company. And it had been through lots and lots of reiterations by now. It was gone. So that was a rescue. And that's the thing too. I think
it's hard for me to imagine you in corporate America.
Me? Oh yeah.
You certainly have the abilities and all that. Don't get me wrong, but I just mean you're so like, it would make me so sad that the world would miss out on all these other gifts that you bring to people's lives, where you trick us into talking about ourselves and we didn't even realize we were going to do it. So I'm glad you put the armor down.
Me too. Because there's a lot of armor in corporate. People who are in there know that. Always have your shield up to some extent. I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore. Like you said, it's heavy. It's exhausting.
And some people love it and they're built for it. And, they know how to manage all of that. But yeah, I agree. It's fun when you find where you're supposed to be. So I'm glad you went looking for those, what'd you say, preacher types?
Preacher types,
yeah. Yeah.
So I think we're coming to the end of our time for today.
I know.
I think we talked about things.
We did.
What was better note to end on than Pastor Dave said, the battle, we can put our armor down because the battle is not ours. The battle is the Lord's. And that, I think, maybe is kind of cliche. That sounds like something your grandma would say, but it's true. And the older you get, the more sense it makes, I think, because you've had some experience with battles that clearly you did not win on your own.
Right. And sometimes we don't win them because we don't take the stupid armor off. Like we think we're protecting ourselves, but we're doing just the opposite. So that is a tough lesson to learn. If I could go back and tell 22-year-old Jamalyn, you'd win so many more battles if you would just try to quit winning them yourself. It would be nice.
Yeah. But then you wouldn't have the experiences that make you who you are.
Sure. I think I could have still done without a few of them.
Maybe.
But then my therapist would have made a lot of less money. So it all worked out for the best, right?
Right.
All right.
We will see everybody next.
See you next week. Remember, the battle is the Lord's. Have a fantastic week.
See ya.
Bye.